They're doing exactly the same thing. So there's many people who normally don't speak shaking in their boots today. The good news, we have backup today. I believe Bruxy came in today.
Yep,
so
down there.
No pressure for me. I'm perfectly at ease with following in his footsteps and all. So part of the reason that we do this is to allow twice a year, give us the opportunity to just have a bit of a sense of us as a local community. You can sense today, and our apologies for squishing you all into the room like this. The kids were good enough, and you parents were good enough to have the kids go in a little bit early to their classrooms just to try to make a little bit more room for you. But it's not very often we get both of our theaters in one space, and now you know why we have two of them, and why the efforts is made on that they have to happen. And there came a point in our history when that was so true that we decided God was saying something to us, maybe we should birth a new site, and that was the beginning of thoughts about East Hamilton. And we are ready to add a 15th site out of our site as well, so we're about to become parents again in West Hamilton as Brantford gets going next month. So yay! We are actually going to have our coordinators, because we've had some additions to our team and whatnot, we're going to have them up with us a little bit later, and that'll be part of the sense of us as well. And actually our new lead pastor for Brantford is also with us today, so we're going to help him up on stage too. So you can get a quick look-see. We're going to have a proper introduction of him in a couple of weeks. He's actually starting on the 14th of January, but he's been hanging out with us off and on over this last while, and we're thrilled to have him and his family with us as well. So today you saw on the screen, and you've heard over the course of the past number of months from Bruxy, the whole emphasis that we've had on taking next steps together as a community in the next 3 to 5 years under what you've seen again as transform, as kind of our theme word and our way of helping us focus and stay together on the direction we're going as well. And so all of us leads as well today are going to just lean a little bit into what that might mean for us at a local level. And so what I kind of like to do today is put a little bit of basic thematic in front of you. We'll have a couple demonstrations here to help us along the way in thinking about this. We'll have our coordinators up, and then I'm also going to do a brief 15-minute interview with two of our elders from one of our home churches as well. So we'll get a bit of a mixed feel here today as well. And the theme that we'd like to focus on today has to do really with the Transform mission and maybe the question that we could put in front of ourselves, because I know it takes a while to absorb core principles, and then it also takes that extra step of saying, am I in? Am I part of this? And what might that mean if I were to want to be part of that as well? And so I kind of throw that as a rhetorical question to you this morning. Are you in? Are you aware? Do you feel like you're up to speed on where we as a larger movement are trying to go? And have you even begun to think yet about the implications of that for you personally, as well maybe as for you in your home church, if you're in a home church, or with others that you connect with in whatever groups you connect with socially as well? And have you thought about the implications of that for how you live your life? I'd just like to throw that out, because we're at a point in the year right now, aren't we, where we're about ready, if you haven't already, to let the horses out of the gate, right? We're going to go galloping into the next few months and whatnot. We know this is the time of year that many of us start to think about what might we like to do a little differently, what might we like to develop, what needs to change. And that all fits very well with this idea of transformation, except that today what I'd like to emphasize for you in terms of core principle is that when we get into change and we think about the kinds of things that could happen, that it's going to take a little bit more than what we might describe as hope, which can sometimes end up being a form of wishful thinking. I would love to. I think that's a great idea. It's a little bit different than I'm going to, and I have the following things set in place to help me and others I'm with get there as well. So that's kind of the theme of what we're looking at. So the three areas that we've concentrated on in the whole Transform thing are grow, invite, and care. I use that nice financial product, GIC, to help me to remember those particular categories as well. Grow, invite, and care. And on the grow category, for us as a site locally, we're talking about in the feel we got through our home churches, was that people said, we're doing lots of things right, we feel they're moving in a good direction. But we would like to also have a sense of that going even deeper. So words like authenticity, something like profound change going on in the midst of our lives. Those would be words that we might associate with that as well. And the idea of doing this together, so that even as we're in home churches or in our various teams and whatnot, that this goes beyond mere functionality, that we just show up. Because You know, the tagline we have, a church for people who aren't into church, it's very possible for us, even in our home churches, to get into a mode where we're kind of doing church, going through the motions. And so I think many of you, as we've gone through, said we don't want to get to that stage. We want to have this sense that we're not just smiling nicely around the circle and actually never sharing anything authentic about what's going on in our lives, that we aren't just patting each other on the back, but then maybe never asking the hard questions. So how is that thing you resolved to do? How's it going? How's that happening for you in your life? How can I encourage you in your journey in that as well? So that was under the grow category, and we wanted to have resources for that and find ways that we could take ourselves further. Under the invite category, we're talking about aiming for spiritually deep conversations which are going somewhere. And we said, if we were to be regularly involved in doing that, what would seem both stretching and also doable? And we said, well, maybe if we at least had one we could describe as one really deep conversation that looked like it was going somewhere, or might go somewhere, or we could invite someone to a service, or invite them to home church, or just sense that God was using us to help them take another step in their spiritual journey. We thought, well, maybe if we were each doing that once a season, that would feel like we were moving in a very healthy direction to ourselves, being open to and committed to helping others who are searching find their way to a relationship with God. And then when we did the math on that, they came out to like, wow, if we all did that for 3-4 years, that would actually amount to 100,000 people. So we didn't start with the number and just throw it out there. We kind of came from that calculation of what would it take if once a season we were to reach out to somebody, 4 people in the year that we had a deep spiritual conversation with whom we issued invitations. So as that happens, we also include in that our sense of being involved in Brantford and opening up seats in other communities and having a chance for people to hear the message that haven't heard. So that's under the invite category as well, where we're essentially enlarging the family and realizing that we have an opportunity to bring God's hope and healing to our neighborhoods. And then under the care category, that had to do with us moving our compassion locally and internationally into a much more personal and relational space. So we have done an awesome job as a community, and you've been part of that, with everything from AIDS care kits, which incidentally will be coming up next month as well, and committing money, investing in others as well. But we want to continue the process of visiting over in Africa, for example, and we have a team coming back to us as well. On the 4th of February, actually here in Hamilton, we'll have a Reverse Africa learning team that's coming back, a variety of people from the continent that have been selected to come and to spend time with us as well. I invite you to be part of that. And we're just saying these are all wonderful pieces that we want to keep in place, but we want to see that develop so that more and more, we talked about the world vision. We don't just have the picture of a child on a fridge, but we've actually written them a letter. Maybe we've done it as a home church. Maybe we have this sense of community developing as well. So we put faces and names to the efforts that we're making together to reach out and involve others in our lives and see ourselves involved in their lives as well. So those are the categories that we saw ourselves developing in for Transform Mission. Now there's a lot going on in all of that, and I think in some ways we've actually hardly cracked the surface on it. And one of the things I like to say right off the bat is, if you don't feel up to speed on this, at one level I would say don't feel horrible about it. Just commit to getting more up to speed. Take a positive step in a direction you need to go. The mission as we have it is intentionally fuzzy at some of the edges. We've left some gaps in it because we're understanding that we need locally to fill those gaps. We need to figure out what it means. So in West Hamilton, for example, our heart for many years has been, how do we go into our downtown core as well? How do we get below the escarpment? How do we get beyond the big box regional feel? This is great. It's identifiable. There's parking. You got the seats. You got your cup holders. But how do we add to that the sense of being in close in community with our city as well? How might we do that? How might it need to look in the downtown Hamilton core? And so when we were ready to birth here, the question was, do we go east to the Silver City, which was about to be built there, or do we go north to the upper end of the city, underneath the escarpment? And we wanted to go to that, and we thought, we're not quite ready yet, so let's plant another peg in the sand on this, and we'll trust that as we're ready, and as the meeting house as a whole feels that we're ready, we'll begin to explore that. And just in this past 6 months, even as part of this mission, the meeting house has given us the go-ahead in West Hamilton to begin to think about what might that look like, and to come up with some sort of plan and some way to go about it. And a good chance it won't be in a movie theater. It might have to be in another type of facility. Maybe it'll involve pods of people connecting below the escarpment. We don't really know. But the point is that's part of this next leg of the journey. And for that to happen, we're going to need us banding together and using our best thoughts and our creativity as part of all of that as well. Progress on all that then is going to require some form of intentionality. And otherwise this is going to end up being a massive exercise in wishful thinking. It will require effort and at times heavy lifting. And you may have noticed the weights up here. We're going to use those in a bit because that heavy lifting image, I think, works for sometimes vision, and realizing a vision or taking steps forward does require real effort. But there's a reward in the midst of that effort as well. Sometimes it's going to require money. Some of you this morning were talking to me about pledges and wanting to get those in. That's awesome. For those of you who haven't had a chance to do it yet, we're eagerly awaiting that. I think we're about halfway there, and that's good news. And the bad news is we're about halfway there. So both sides, but for those of you who like to have half glass full or half glass empty, you're both resourced now out of that statistic. And we would just encourage you, as you're thinking about, am I on board with this, to realize that it actually, to resource these efforts actually requires money, because we take a new step, we need new staff, or we need other new resources, that just requires extra money. So that's what those two parts of our pledge process are for, is enabling us to take those new steps. The question on all this is, can we get there merely by trying? And my real honest feeling on this is that it's not going to happen that way. We have to get into the mode where we're saying, I'm not actually committed just to trying, I'm actually committed to training. And there's a difference between trying and training, isn't there? We're going to explore that in just a moment. So today I want us to reaffirm that we're going to need this level of trust in what God has said to us through our own reflections in home churches right across the meeting houses. I think trust in God, that He can help us as a community, but also individually, to take those steps. Trust that He'll give us what we need to make it happen. And then on the other side of that, a commitment to do our part, and that is to get into a bit of a training mode so that this can happen. Well, I tell you, sometimes I feel like when I look at the city, that if I were to see myself as a bringer of peace into this, and us as bringers, those who bring peace into our city, that one of the things I have to admit is that sometimes my life and my mind and my heart are a very cluttered space. I have lots of things going on. I don't feel like I'm over-resourced. I don't feel like I have tons of margin in my life. And in some ways, many of us, as we've looked at our denomination, the Brethren in Christ's emphasis on simplicity and on peacemaking, we feel, oh my goodness, aren't we ready for the message of simplicity? Isn't it about, at certain levels, getting things simple enough so that we reestablish some sense of margin in our lives, whether that's financially or whether that's with my time or my effort, to be able to give? It's really hard sometimes, isn't it, to think about giving more when we feel like we're already scrambling to keep up in some way. And so we acknowledge right up front that that's going to be part of the challenge. It's hard to invite others into a peaceful zone when we ourselves don't feel like we're at peace either. And so to the end of helping us maybe think about that whole bringing out in the piece as well, I'm going to invite Melanie Herman to come up and join me here for a few moments. And Melanie is just going to help us calm down for a moment and to get ourselves into a space where we might find it easy to be in touch with how we're actually feeling on the inside. And I'm going to suggest that after she's done that, we'll just briefly reference how that ties into us being at peace enough on the inside to be able to become peacemakers to others. Now, I'm not suggesting that if we just do what we do today, that's going to accomplish it all on its own. But it is sort of to say, as we get into a space where we become aware of where we're at, it enables us to invite God to come in and to transform us as a starting place, or as a place to go alongside of us, being available to Him to transform others. People are attracted to those that they sense actually are in touch as well with reality, with their own reality. So Melanie, you need a mic. They're waving me over here. Sam told me this, I just forgot. Sorry about that.
I don't know which one it is.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I'd like to teach you a de-stressing breathing technique known as the centering breath. So we'll begin by coming into a comfortable seated position. So I'd like you to place both of your feet on the floor and sit with your back up against your seat with your spine upright. Allow your shoulders to relax and rest your hands comfortably either in your lap or on your thighs. And then take a moment to close your eyes. And sitting with your spine upright, with your eyes closed, become aware of your everyday natural breath, noticing its rate, rhythm, and depth. Simply watch the breath as it flows in and out. Now gently place one hand on your upper abdomen, just below your rib cage, above your navel, and place the other hand on the center of your chest. Continue to be aware of your breath. Now the next time that you inhale, breathe down into your lower hand, and then draw the breath up to your upper hand. And as you exhale your breath, release it slowly and smoothly. Again, inhale into your lower hand, feel your belly expand. Draw the breath up to the upper hand, feel your chest expand. And as you exhale, notice how the chest and the belly contract and move. Continue with this breathing pattern. Now, as a means to entrain the mind, as you inhale, mentally count from 1 to 4. And as you exhale, count from 4 to 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Continue at your own pace. And when you have established this rhythm, you can relax your hands down on your lap and continue for a few more breaths.
I ask you to keep doing that. Melanie's leaving the stage. And then I'm going to read these scripture verses too, and I'd like, as you continue to breathe, I'd like you to just let these sink in. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Keep breathing. Here it is again, but in a different version of the message. Are you tired? Worn out? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Amen. You can come out of that trance you're in now. Anyways, that was meant to be just a very short demonstration of what I think is going to need to happen for us to prevail. You're going to need to find some space in your life, whether it happens that way or in different ways for yourself, to sort of get in touch with where you're at, offer that to God, and then hear those words that we just read together, Jesus' offer, saying basically to you, I want to do an exchange. I want to take all that heavy cramping, sickening stuff that's burdening you down. I want to exchange that burden for another burden. The kind of burden that's going to set you free. So there's something about the whole centering thing that's cleansing, that brings us back to a fundamental place. And it's really important to do that because sometimes we need that whole breathing thing to get us ready for the burdens he does have. So Jimmy, come on up here. Jimmy, I see you've changed your t-shirt. And Jimmy's going to just do a little demonstration for us here. You may not know this. This is one of these opportunities, part of us to get to know your associate guy here actually is a certified personal trainer, which means certifiably crazy. I know, I work with him. So Jimmy, why don't you tell us what you got going here, what you're lifting, what you're going to do.
So I'm just going to do a standard shoulder press, just these weights above my head, breathing really hard so I can not fall down.
Good stuff. Yeah. Jimmy wants me to spot him. You guys be careful, okay? Front row.
Well, those are at least 25 now.
I'm not lifting him, I promise. How you feeling, Jimmy? Stop lying, Jimmy. We good? All right. Yeah. And now I think he's going to do a curl, am I correct? All right. Go at it, man. Yep, we'll do it. Yep. This way. Thank you, Jimmy. Tell me, just before you go, do you suppose that most people here could just maybe come up and do what you just did? How did you get to this point where you could do that?
Just consistent work and then, piling more and more weight on every time. And the most important thing with actually functioning with like explosive exercise is those deep breaths that we just said. So if I hold my breath, like I can even show you, I'll hold my breath like most people do when they work out. I won't be able to do it.
So I helped you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now if I breathe, it's a little bit easier. So, yeah, just consistent work, eating the right things, adding proper nutrition to just like daily life, proper rest, and then breathing through exercise so you can perform.
Okay, good stuff, man. Thanks very much. And don't go too far. One of the reasons we emphasize that is because we really feel in this stage of our next mission is that for us to get down and actually make a difference in our city, it's going to involve a form, whatever the form is, of heavy lifting. So you need the two things. You need to get centered and you need to be close to God. Jesus says, come to me. Whatever form works for you, come to me. Refresh, get centered, get at peace. Then be a peacemaker with others. And he's also saying you need to breathe deeply, breathe in deeply of me as well, because in a minute you're going to need to be doing some lifting. You're going to need to reaching out to others. And in this case, he said you don't have to do it alone. You got someone there spotting you. So home church and your smaller clusters and others, that's all about spotting for each other as well. So we wanted to very briefly introduce you to some of the people you're going to be invited to do the heavy lifting with. And these are your ministry coordinators. Can I have you guys just come up and join me here for a second on stage? We're just going to introduce them to you. And Andrew's coming down as well. Colin right across. We're not going to do a lot of talking on this, but we thought, you know what? You should know who your ministry team is. We've made a few changes recently, simply because we have people going through life transitions. We've been really fortunate here in West Hamilton. We have many of our coordinators have stayed on for multiple seasons, have given excellent service, and some of them were at the point where they needed to make some life changes. So these are what you might describe as all heavy hitters. They lift weight regularly on behalf of us as a community. So starting right here to my side, this is Tina. And Tina has already been serving in a capacity as a compassion coordinator. We actually need 3 compassion coordinators to cover all the bases of our involvement in the city. And Jill, who's with us today, wave Jill, I see you back there, yes. She has been in the point position of that, helping lead the charge for the last number of years. We've already said thank you to her, but we continue to say thank you to you, Jill, and it's so personal. And yeah, Tina now is going to step up and take the leadership on that for the next 6 months at least. We'll see after that. We're working together to find another team member as well. So thank you, Tina. Beside her is Aggie. And Aggie, many of you know from KidMax. Yes, your children are in her hands. And she teaches during the week as well. So she's ongoing with us in the KidMax capacity. And then someone brand new to the team, Rebecca, is going to be taking over for Sam the Man. Right. Yes. I have 7 minutes left, thanks. She's already in her role. Thank you, Rebecca. I'll just keep moving on. Rebecca also leads a home church, or co-leads with others. Steve, you saw him up here this morning in music, and he works with team practices during the week. Besides Steve is another brand new member, Lori-Ann Cunningham. And Lori-Ann, you've seen her at the information table many times, and she's now taking on the full role from Jeff and Jane, who are going to be going with our Brantford folks and are getting ready for that as well. Then a partner in arms with Tina is Jane. She's our other compassion coordinator, Jane Garner, salt of the earth person. We love having her on board as well. And then one step further down, there's Juanita. I'll go to Juanita first. Juanita oversees our prayer and care, so as you go out into the concession area afterwards, there's a assigned area there that's available to you anytime you need someone just to talk to, and we have a variety of people that are on schedule for that, and Juanita is coordinating for that for us as well, and we thank you very much. She started out assisting Thelma and has moved into that role, so we're so thankful. And then in between, we just passed over was Andrew. Andrew's the new lead for the Brantford site as well. So thank you guys. I'll let you go on your way because, as I've been reminded, I have just a few minutes left, and I'll let you go. And Tina's going to stay up here, and I'm going to invite Andrea to join us just for a few minutes. We are going to be having a push for, or just reminders about home church and about volunteerism in the next couple of weeks as well. And so one of the sets of people I could very definitely have had up here if we'd had room for them on the stage would have been our elders as well. How many of you, actually, why don't we just have any elders that are here currently? Do you mind just standing? We won't go through your names or your groups, but just stand and others can see you. I don't know how many we have to hear today, but so you know, we have close to 30 elders. Thanks, folks. Sit down. These are all folks who are part of the heavy lifting that we're doing. These are all folks who themselves weekly have to stop and pause, take a breath, think about what it means to lead us all into digging into truth further and encouraging you in your walk and your journey. These are your teammates. They're part of your leaders. Okay, we celebrate. So you guys, I wanted to just ask you briefly this morning, when it comes to this whole theme of being at peace and yet taking on the sense of significant calling from God, I wanted to ask you how you guys try to go about doing that in your own lives. So, Andrea, why don't I start with you?
I came out of a year last year, just a little background, I'm in Teachers College this year, and last year I was teaching in a music school. I was commuting 2 hours each way on a GO train, and I actually, that space, I had the opportunity to really connect with God because I had time. Sitting there, I might as well spend some time with God. So coming into this year, I did not have the luxury of time that I had last year. So it was, okay, I know that this is going to be a challenge. What is that going to mean for my relationship with God and how that plays out in my year? So at the beginning, I was very intentional about saying, what can I take on? What's the way that I can serve this year? and just to do the things I decide to do with God fully and in a committed way, so that it's right. So that's
Okay.
what
Good. Awesome. Tina, how about you? Yeah.
It kind of depends where I am to find just time with God or to recover or. So if I'm at home, I really love music, so I listen to a lot of music and singing, and then listening to obviously Christian music, just listening to the lyrics and just kind of just being silent and kind of even almost doing like the breathing exercise that we did. And then just being thankful. I find that thankfulness is the easiest way for me to connect with God, and just realizing what I have, what we have just living in Canada, and yeah, just always coming back to that state of being thankful to God for what He's done and what He's continuing to do, and just the opportunities that I've had.
Okay, now you, Tina, you've had quite a bit going on in your life in this last while. Why don't you describe that, and maybe how do you, in the midst of trying to juggle many balls, how do you then stay at peace, or what, how do you've been doing some heavy lifting in your own life as well. Have you found ways to make that work?
Yes and no. I think one big thing is trying to figure out what God has given me to do and what I've given myself to do, and whether or not those line up. And some of the heavy lifting that Ken's talking about, just getting married this year, just literally moving into a new place, taking on new roles and responsibilities at work or even here at the meeting house. And yeah, it's just, again, pausing to be thankful. That's the biggest thing in my life that I can always come back to. And just realizing that I wouldn't have what I have without God.
Yeah, okay. I want to thank both of you for just being leaders in our community. I know you give of your hearts regularly. I'm quite aware, just through email and personal conversations and whatnot, of just how full these guys' lives are. And many of our elders and leaders are in this position as well. Lest we think sometimes that when we talk about bearing burdens, that's only done by those who don't have much on their plate. It just wouldn't be the case here. So this centering in God, finding our space, our way to connect with Him, to be at peace, to let gratitude fill us and lead the way forward. These would all be examples. And your story, or the way that you do it, or the way that God recharges you might look a little bit different. But my encouragement to you this morning would be, you need to find some way. You need to find some way of hearing those words of Jesus who says, "Come to me. Give me what you're carrying." And all the parts of that are unhealthy, as Tina maybe just said here, the parts that are from you that you can maybe let go and maybe need to let go of. And allow me to give you your sense of calling and commissioning in life, so that even if, you could say, well, I can't just leave my job. Of course not. But maybe God can give you a way of encountering or working in that job that refreshes you and gives you a new view on actually what it is that you're up to there. Maybe it's not about producing product X. It's actually about doing it with others and being involved in their life and establishing relationship there, so that God has an opportunity to reach them in a way He wouldn't otherwise have. So that's going to look in some way, but my encouragement to you is, as we step forward into this year, we need to find a way of trusting God and knowing Him more fully. And then on the other side of that, we need to say to Him, I know that that's going to take some effort for me to do some things. I'm willing to train with you. I'm willing to invite others into my life to train with me to make that happen. And as we do, as we're spotting for each other and whatnot, at the end of the day, step by step, eventually we're going to be able to do the lifting that we sense God's asking us to do, and we'll experience the joy of seeing His family enlarged, of seeing peace in our own lives, and of sharing that peace with others who need it so desperately in our city. Let's just pray together and pray for these guys as well, and then we'll be finished. Father, we thank you so much for caring for us the way you do, for bringing us into that space where we recognized our need of you. Thank you for giving us Jesus, who came and who offered Himself and who gave us side-by-side living example of what it means to be your son and your daughter. We so much need to learn His ways of working, the humbleness, humility, and the gentleness of heart that He's talking about. The ability to walk in the midst of people and not see them, but to encounter them and to understand your heart for them and your desire to reach out and include them in your family. Thank you for these guys up front here. Thank you for the others who've been up front. Thank you for the many in our midst who are giving in one way or another to see your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. As we head into this year, we just invite you, Lord, to meet with us. We look forward to meeting with you in those private spaces where we can reaffirm our trust in you and in your plans for us. And we also ask that you would just put the people and the means within our reach that we can begin to not only try, but to actually train, to take a step at a time in a steady direction that you have called us to. And so look forward at the end of the day, knowing you've used us in our city, in our communities, in our families, to be your servants and to bring peace to a world that needs it so desperately. And these things we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Thanks, guys. So just before you folks head out, just a reminder, if you're looking for a place to get involved, you can sign up for the Soup Fest, which is coming up. We've done that for many years now as well.